faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books from around the world.
Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk.
Today's book interpretation is The Publisher, subtitled Henry Luce and His American Century. Many may find Henry Luce unfamiliar, but you've likely heard of magazines he founded like Time, Fortune, Life, and Sports Illustrated. Henry Luce is hailed as the most influential publishing giant in 20th century Western media. His magazine empire largely shaped America's 20th century image, as Luce devoted himself to changing global dynamics through media. For example, the term World War II was coined by Luce himself. In the early 1940s, Luce relentlessly pushed America into the international conflict through his magazines. It was during this campaign that World War II became widely adopted. The phrase the American century also originated from Luce's 1941 Life magazine editorial titled exactly that. In it, Luce expressed his vision for American global leadership. This editorial cemented the American century concept while marking internationalism's triumph over isolationism in U.S. foreign policy. Notably, Luce spent his entire childhood in rural China, fostering a lifelong connection. His push for U.S. involvement in WM1 was largely driven by hopes of altering China's wartime situation. Yet despite monumental media success, Luce's personal life remained unfulfilled. Both his marriages were unhappy, and he maintained tense relations with his editorial teams. Moreover, his efforts to reshape global order through America proved largely futile. The publisher we discuss today is Luce's Biography. Published in 2010, author Alan Brinkley is a Columbia American history professor who previously wrote The Unfinished Nation and National Book Award-winning Voices of Protest. Brinkley excels at revealing historical figures' hidden dimensions, creating rich, multidimensional narratives. In The Publisher, he meticulously documents Luce's legendary experiences from his childhood in China, building a media empire, and attempting political involvement, interweaving Luce's personal life with the global landscape of the time. The New Yorker praised this biography as transcending a single life story, calling it a modern political history. Next, we'll guide you through Henry Luce's legendary life in 3 parts. Part 1. Henry Luce's early years, from rural China to media mogul. Part 2. How Luce's magazine empire shaped how Americans viewed the world. Part 3. Why most of Luce's efforts to push America to change the world order ended in failure. First, let's look at Henry Luce's early experiences in Part 1. Luce was born in 1898 in Penghai, Shandong, China. His father, Elder Luce, was a top Yale graduate who, inspired by Christian faith, volunteered to come to China as a missionary. Elder Luce believed his mission was to educate and uplift the Chinese, bringing them to Western civilizational standards so they genuinely convert to Christianity. To this end, for 20 years, he tirelessly traveled the world, raising funds to improve Chinese believers' lives. Young Luce, growing up immersed in this, inherited from his father a serious, self-perfecting spirit. Despite living in impoverished rural Penghai, the Luce family maintained an Anglo-American middle-class lifestyle, sharing a small courtyard with other missionary families, complete with a refined garden and Western-style furniture. With up to 6 servants at home as the eldest son, young Luce received meticulous care and excellent home education from his parents. The family would carefully read Anglo-American newspapers and host grand banquets on American Independence Day. Every summer, they'd go to Qingdao to escape the heat, the happiest times of young Luce's childhood. At age 10, young Luce first left his parents to attend a boarding school in Shifu, today's Yangtai, Shandong. Founded by the British, the school had extremely strict education methods and poor food. As an American, young Luce didn't fit in with his classmates and even developed a stutter, but this didn't discourage him. He always strived to be first in exams and tirelessly wrote letters to his parents reporting his achievements, revealing a fiercely competitive and fame-seeking personality. During their years in Shandong, The Luce family witnessed two pivotal moments in modern Chinese history: the Boxer Rebellion that swept Shandong in 1910 and the 1911 Xinhai Revolution that overthrew the imperial system. When the revolution occurred, young Luce and Chifu felt both curious and excited. In a letter to relatives, he wrote, "This revolution proves China isn't just a great nation with glorious history, but with even greater future." In 1912, 14-year-old Luce returned alone to America, where his father enrolled him at Connecticut's elite Hotchkiss School. Nearly all graduates entered Yale, and elder Luce secured a scholarship to afford the tuition. Studying at Hotchkiss became Luce's first major experience back in America. There, he first encountered America's class divisions. Most students came from privileged backgrounds. While scholarship recipient, Luce lived on a nearby farm wearing cheap Chinese-bought clothes. Not understanding classmates' slang or sports rules, he earned an insulting nickname,
Chinaman.
Though resentful, Luce soon excelled through diligence, becoming top student and winning the coveted editor-in-chief position. Yet this experience gave young Luce a profound outsider identity. This feeling haunted him lifelong, even at his peak. At Hotchkiss, he also met his most important friend and rival, Britton Haddon. Haddon came from a wealthy New York merchant family, privileged, brilliant, and irreverent, polar opposite to serious, pious Luce, yet both shared passion for literature and writing. Each leading campus literary magazines, they developed fierce yet friendly competition. This rivalry forged lifelong friendship while establishing their perpetual one-upmanship dynamic. At 18, Luce and Haddon graduated Hotchkiss for Yale, no longer on scholarships but still poorest and brightest. Through Haddon, Luce glimpsed the wealthy world, fueling his yearning for elite affluence. At this time, Luce and Haddon remained passionate about publishing. At my graduation, they independently decided to pursue journalism careers. First, they each tried a couple of reporter jobs, then joined a Baltimore evening paper together, quickly becoming star feature writers. However, they soon became dissatisfied working for others and began planning something big. That is, to co-found their own magazine. Luce and Haddon despised mainstream media for its dull language and bloated style, and with youthful passion, they conceived a new publication. So, this new magazine would excerpt and rewrite news from 90 publications, covering politics, books, sports scandals, science, and society, with each article under 200 words. The magazine aimed to serve the culturally deprived upper class, busy businessmen, and socialite women, providing them with weekly dinner table conversation topics. And initially, no one believed in these young men. They were only 24, with less than 2 years combined reporting experience, and almost no money. And America was in an economic recession at the time, but Luce and Haddon devoted themselves wholeheartedly to the venture. Their Yale classmates' network and Haddon's family background played a key role. This won them endorsements from many authorities and helped raise nearly $90,000 in startup capital within months. They pondered deeply over the magazine's name. They considered names like Facts, Destiny, and Opportunity. Until one day, Luce saw an advertising slogan, had a flash of insight, and immediately decided on the word time, because this word reflected the magazine's dual purpose: to record passing time and save readers precious time. On March 3rd, 1923, Time magazine's first issue was officially published, 26 pages printed in small black and white text. Its unique style featured concise news summaries with political highlights in lively, casual language full of satire and wit. After slow growth in the first few months, Time's circulation doubled by year-end, and it became profitable the next year. By the late 1920s, Time had grown into a renowned publication in America and worldwide, with substantial profits, circulation nearing 200,000, and advertising revenue far exceeding subscriptions. During this rapid career ascent, Luce also entered his first marriage. His wife Lila Hotz came from a wealthy, prominent Chicago family. Luce sought all wealth, fame, and influence. He also hoped this marriage would grant entry into his coveted social world. Though initially intensely attracted, Luce soon discovered their worldviews diverged drastically.
Lila thrived on high society gossip, chasing materialism and fashion, while Luce remained solemnly ambitious.
This foreshadowed their marriage ending over a decade later. During Time's rapid success, Luce's relationship with partner Haddon deteriorated quickly. For years, they'd maintained a frenemy relationship. As the magazine grew, their personality difference has made conflicts irreconcilable. Unlike diligent Luce, cynical Haddon withdrew from editing, indulging in revelry and alcoholism. In February 1929, during Time's 6th anniversary, 31-year-old Haddon died from infection. Thereafter, only Luce's name graced Time's cover. He bought Haddon's shares, becoming Time Inc.'s sole controlling shareholder. Over years, he held titles like president and chairman, but never relinquished editorial control, building his empire alone. Next in part 2, let's examine Luce's magazines. How Time, Fortune, and Life transformed American news consumption, worldview understanding, and shaped 20th century America. As Luce's first magazine, Time featured innovations starting with writing style. Luce avoided serious magazine's monotonous language, insisting on playful, irreverent wording. When describing someone, he'd use adjectives like slack-jawed with buck teeth. He favored exaggerated metaphors. For example, describing ruddy complexion like a full moon. Even obituaries avoided plain language for dramatic flair. All men are mortal, and death visited last week. This sensational opening style soon became known as Time style. People mention Time style with slight mockery, but must admit its powerful impact. Another major feature of Time was its obsession with powerful figures. From the first issue, nearly every Time cover featured a celebrity portrait. Mostly distinguished figures like politicians, business leaders, generals, artists, and athletes, occasionally controversial or reviled individuals. In the magazine's first 50 years, Stalin appeared 12 times on covers, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Mussolini 8 times each, Hitler 7 times. Each cover story offered clear perspectives, meticulous details, and compelling readability. Even today, being a Time cover subject is considered a high honor. Time's concise, readable format aligned with its era. America's accelerating pace of life and increasingly localized commerce were key societal shifts. The growing middle class needed to understand national and global affairs, but lacked time to sift through information. Luce, deeply understanding this trend, proclaimed his editorial philosophy. These 26 pages contain all significant news from every newspaper and periodical on your floor. Time's most enduring influence was establishing a unified worldview among America's emerging middle class. Post-W1, American life rapidly standardized. Urban-rural divides narrowed, new housing designs homogenized. Store merchandise and even clothing styles grew increasingly similar. Now publications like Time standardized how Americans learned about the world. This middle-class worldview manifested in 2 ways: broader international perspectives and secular pleasure-seeking consumerism. Time proudly claimed most subscribers were modern-minded elites, young and affluent. In early 1930s surveys of American magazine subscribers' wealth, Time consistently ranked first. Despite massive success, Luce was only in his early 30s. He began planning his next magazine. His old partner Haddon's death freed him to pursue it without restraint. And that's, for me, indiscreet. Just months after Haddon's death, in May 1929, Luce proposed a new magazine to the board, focused on documenting modern industrial civilization through business. This became Fortune, still published today. Luce believed that as corporations dominated economic life, a new generation of tycoons gained social and political influence, deserving greater media attention. He resolved
to examine them honestly, neither diminishing nor glorifying.
By 1929, however, an unprecedented economic depression loomed over America, set to devastate corporate reputations. Luce's visionary approach, examining business beyond profits, proved crucial for Fortune's survival and success through hardship. The English name fortune delighted Luce, signifying not just wealth but also fate or providence.
His passion for fortune exceeded times, hiring top designers, using premium paper, and commissioning artists for unique covers each issue.
What truly distinguished Fortune was its emphasis on photography.
This was remarkably avant-garde for that era. Fortune's February 1930 debut featured Margaret Bourke White's photos of a Chicago meatpacking plant. Like Luce, Bourke-White was captivated by industrial technology's beauty and power. Her abstract pigback photos highlighted the orderly, efficient, mechanized slaughter. Through such imagery and detached prose, Fortune conveyed a new value, embracing modernity and aesthetics, wholly embracing machinery while critiquing business and capitalism, became Fortune's other hallmark. It was precisely here that publisher Luce and his editors faced their first major rift. At the time, most Fortune journalists distrusted modern capitalism, favoring labor over capital in reporting. Initially, Luce also leaned towards this stance. He was very tolerant of the magazine's critical reporting. And although these reports often brought complaints from business friends, by the mid-1930s, the magazine's tone became increasingly left-leaning and critiquing capital more ruthlessly and praising Roosevelt's New Deal that initiated state intervention in the economy. At this point, an uneasy Luce began to intervene. On one hand, if Fortune magazine kept criticizing businesses, it couldn't expect them to continue placing ads. But the deeper reason was that, deep down, Luce always had sympathy for the business world and was wary of socialism. From then on, Luce and the editorial department maintained a mutually restraining relationship, which established Fortune's balanced stance that endures to this day. It critiques laissez-faire capitalism while avoiding arrogance and disdain towards capital and commerce. It remains wary of collectivism that emphasizes equality while advocating for entrepreneurs to provide more welfare benefits for employees. Luce called this the progressive new business spirit. It aligned with the rise of welfare capitalism and profoundly influenced how Americans viewed capital and commerce. If time served the busy American elite, Fortune was meant to attract businessmen's interest. Then Luce's third magazine, Life, aimed from the start to reach everyone. In the 1930s, the documentary photography trend rapidly developed in America. Life magazine echoed this trend by using numerous news photos to reflect Americans' daily lives and spirit. Luce believed the new magazine would transcend differences in class, religion, race, and political views, striving to embrace the whole world. Each week, Life magazine published over 200 photos, documenting not only major domestic and global events, but also the life details of ordinary people. This feature has continued since Life's inception, even after the print edition ceased in 2007 and went fully digital. Life's inaugural issue in November 1936 featured a series of photos of construction workers at Fort Peck Dam in Montana, showing a chaotic yet optimistic world. In dirty shanty towns, workers laughed heartily, drank, and flirted in bars. In other publications of that era, documentary photography was viewed as a political weapon to expose social injustice and drive change. But Luce insisted Life's mission wasn't showcasing division but celebrating shared American values, sincere inclusiveness, and hopeful spirit. For example, Life's 1937 photo essay on Muncie, a small Midwest town, showed elegant boulevards despite Depression devastation.
Meet middle-class homes, barbers smiling while shaving customers.
Elderly couples gently petting dogs. This optimism culminated in Life's most iconic image. On August 1945, VJ Day, a uniformed sailor passionately kissed a stranger in Times Square, radiating joy and hope. Life soon became advertisers' darling. Within a decade, its ad revenue exceeded $100 million, becoming America's most profitable publication. Luce candidly admitted people might respect time and fortune, but life won genuine affection, ushering the company's golden age and fostering shared national identity. As one critic noted, it compellingly crafted middle-class imagery, presenting an idealized vision where people united by common American dream amid depression, unrest, and war. Having introduced Luce's 3 magazines and how they portrayed and shaped 20th century America, Part 3 explores why Luce faced repeated setbacks, pushing America to change the world, adding tragic dimensions to his life. As a missionary's son, Luce developed a borderless vision and sense of mission from childhood. His Yale elite education and media empire connected him with America's top echelons. But since high school, his persistent outsider identity prevented full integration into that class. He believed the great American nation bore a mission to liberate all humanity. Thus, Luce bet on politicians he thought could fulfill this, pushing America into international affairs with religious fervor. But his efforts were always thwarted by misjudgments or shifting U.S. political tides. Crucially, his media role demanding objectivity fundamentally conflicted with his political ambitions. This left him unable to fully appease politicians while losing editorial support, stranded in isolation. For example, Luce always disliked Roosevelt, wary of the New Deal's collectivist leanings. By early 1940, as WY raged, Luce saw Roosevelt as indecisive about aiding allies and joining the war, deeming him unfit to lead America through crisis. Thus, in the 1940 election, Luce fully backed Republican dark horse Wendell Willkie. He believed Willkie alone could correct Republican isolationism. Overriding editors' objections, Luce used his magazines to fiercely attack Roosevelt and boost Willkie. Yet Roosevelt won a third term easily, while Willkie vanished from politics. This was Luce's gravest misstep in political betting. The biggest controversy of Luce's career was his 1940s editorial stance on China's civil war. His China childhood gave Luce extraordinary affection for the country, lasting until death. He tirelessly pushed U.S. into WHO and frantically fundraised for United China Relief, largely because he believed America should rescue China from invaders. In 1941, returning to China after decades, Luce met Chiang Kai-shek and was instantly captivated, calling him Asia's greatest ruler since Emperor Kangxi. He featured Chiang on Time's cover 10 times, 3 more than Hitler.
He constantly pressured editors to glorify Kuomintang rule while ignoring its corruption and incompetence.
During late World War II, Times China correspondent White concluded from close observation that Chiang Kai-shek would collapse.
But under Luce's orders, any article hinting at Kuomintang weaknesses got rejected, nearly rupturing editorial relations and forcing White's resignation.
Luce's unconditional admiration for Chiang extended into China's post-War I Civil War period. He believed Chiang's corruption, bureaucracy, and atrocities were solely war-induced pressures. He suggested the U.S. appoint MacArthur as Chiang's military advisor. But MacArthur, like most U.S. leaders, saw China as strategically insignificant for intervention and refused. Even years later, when most Americans accepted Chiang's impending defeat, Luce stubbornly continued pro-Chiang campaigns. He repeated this pattern during the Cold War and Vietnam War. During these years, Luce's second marriage also entered crisis. His second wife, Claire Booth Luce, was an ambitious playwright. Luce swiftly ended his first marriage after falling for her. Initially, they supported each other's careers. While Luce built his empire, equally ambitious Claire became a congresswoman and U.S. ambassador to Italy. But this power couple marriage lacked deep emotional intimacy. They mostly lived separate lives, with constant tabloid scandals, maintaining a chaotic, painful relationship into old age without divorcing. They even tried psychedelics to salvage their marriage. Ultimately, they chose Christian fellowship to companion each other till death. Earlier in personal crises, Luce sought refuge in his company and magazines. But now, editorial rifts were irreparable. He was no longer Time Inc.'s soul. From the late 1950s, Luce began searching for Time Inc.'s next editor-in-chief. In 1964, after Time's 40th anniversary, 66-year-old Luce formally retired. After retirement, Luce's main work was writing memoirs, reiterating America's mission and his vision. He wrote, "America's past and present task is to lead in creating a new world order," though these memoirs were never completed. In his final years, Lucy complained in a letter that beyond Time Inc. colleagues, he had no real friends. In New York, no one ever invites me to warm dinners or gatherings. On February 28, 1967, a sudden heart attack ended Luce's life at 69, a legacy both celebrated and criticized. As author Brinkley notes, Luce was famously arrogant, dogmatic, conservative, and insisted his views shape editorials. Former colleagues often resented his interference, yet nearly all acknowledged his brilliant creativity. Whatever opinions people held, Luce never pandered to market demands. When magazines stagnated, he improved them, never resorting to populism, sensationalism, or cynicism. His goal wasn't merely expanding readership or crushing rivals, but advancing national greatness as he saw it.
Per Brinkley, Luce's greatest achievement wasn't political influence, but crafting through his magazines a compelling, unifying image of American life.
They acted as cultural glue, fostering shared national identity and values. By Luce's 1967 death, that consensus began fracturing. His magazines either declined or diverged drastically from their original paths. Life magazine ceased print 3 times by 2007. Time and Fortune persist, but now merely record, not represent, our divided, conflict-riven world. It's hard to imagine any modern media matching Time or Fortune's peak influence and unifying power. Thus, Henry Luce epitomized mass media's golden age. After him, profit replaced consensus and mission as media's prime goal. Well, the rise of social media has dramatically weakened traditional media's authority in setting news priorities. The era of media moguls who tried to single-handedly influence global events and define an epoch has now come to a close. Okay, that concludes our interpretation of The Publisher. Reading notes are below the audio. We'll see you next time.